Okay, thank you, Manuel João. Thank you, the organizers, for this excellent seminar. We are learning so much. So I will talk about combining course design and technologies to address teaching challenges in a large biology class. So I'm going direct to the point. In my teaching practice, I identify several challenges that I would like to overcome. And these challenges, the most important ones, are the lack of student engagement in the classroom, the lack of student utilization of the reading materials. The students tend to use the PowerPoint slides as reading materials for their study, and the lack of humanization. That's very important, especially in large classes and in the online teaching that we have to face due to the pandemics. So based on these challenges, I selected several resources to address them. And these are the resources that I selected and used in my courses. So the first one is the Perusal platform for the utilization of the reading material and the engagement of students outside the class. Team-based learning for students' engagement in the classroom and utilization of reading materials. Audience response systems, the clickers, to engage students during the classroom, and a communication strategy to provide humanization. So to create a safe learning environment where the students will feel free to share ideas, to discuss, to have open debates, and so to improve their learning. These methodologies and technologies were implemented as is depicted in this slide. So every class, before the class, I gave an assignment in the reading assignment in the Perusal platform for the students to read before the class. And the beginning of each class started with team-based learning. And then the rest of the class, it was expository based on the subjects that were not included in the reading assignment in the Perusal platform, with audience response systems, with questions for the cell phones in order for the students to answer. The next class was exactly the same. So this was the basic structure of the classes during the semester. And throughout the term, I had implemented a communication strategy to get closer to the students, to feel to see what they feel, how do they perceive their learning and their difficulties. I'm not going into details about these technologies and methodologies. Just very briefly, the Perusal platform allows the students to read a document collaboratively, so they can comment on each comments and ask questions. So they perform this before classes. And the beginning of each class started with the team-based learning based on the reading assignment in Perusal platform. So they started with an individual test, and then a group test, and then the appeal. And then in the end of the class, it was expository based on the subjects that were not very clarified in the TBL or in the subjects that were not included in the pre-class activity. And during this expository part of the class, I presented, of course, the subjects, and then for a short period, and then I launched questions for the cell phones for the students to answer anonymously, and then we discussed the results, the answers of the students. And then another short presentation, another question for the cell phones, another discussion. And this was the pace of the expository part of the classes. So regarding communication during all the semester, to see if the students are enjoying, if they are feeling difficulties, how could they adapt to all these methodologies? I implemented an explicit way of communicating with them, trying to explain in detail every methodology and technology, and making sure that I was available for any questions they have during the semester. I justified every methodology for the students, so they could feel that they were using each platform, each technology with a purpose, for instance, for improvement of critical thinking, to improve the use of arguments in debates or in the ability into collaborative work, so they could feel that they were doing something for their own benefit. I created expectations. I think this is very important. So to engage the students, I told them that if you do the TVL, you increase the ability for collaborative work, which would be very important, a very important skill for their future as professionals, as scientists. So they could project themselves in the future doing things that they are doing during the classes. So for each technology and methodology, I started slowly. So the first time it was a trials to see how was the reaction. I heard their feedback in order to adapt every methodology for them to get a good adaptation to the methodologies. And during all the semester, I talked to the students during the class, during each classes about the methodologies, and then I performed several Google questionnaires in Google platforms for anonymous answers to feel how they perceive their learning, how they perceive their adaptation to the methodologies. So one of the questions which was an open answer question, regarded the less good aspects of technologies. They complained about, of course, work overload. They complained always about this, but of course they're right. They're right about this. It consumed extra time outside classes, dispersion of concentration between multiple platforms, the creation of multiple accounts, some aspects like forgetting activities, although I will reminding them about the activities by email, and the problem of students that could not have good access to the internet. That could be really problematic for them. On the positive side of the technologies, they said that, for instance, Perusal kept them with the study up to date. The Voxvote, the platform of audience response systems that I used, made the class working less monotonous. The classes were more interactive, and especially for those that are not comfortable speaking in public. That's a very interesting aspect of the use of these audience response systems with anonymous response. Improving of concentration of focus in the class, to break the rhythm of the class regarding learning. It would allow the checkpoint if they were understanding the subjects of the class, to allow them to think and questioning the subjects, contact the subjects before the class with regards to Perusal, keep following the subjects all along the semester. And interesting, this makes learning more autonomous because they had to read by themselves before the class. In terms of interaction, the students, they had a perception that about what their colleagues thought about the subjects. They could debate ideas, and more student and teacher interaction, especially for those that are shy. One course that I teach, it's Fundamentals of Pharmacology, that was through the transition from face-to-face to online in the beginning of the pandemics. I asked the students for the difference between face-to-face and online classes. And as you can see, the majority of students, they said it's the same to follow the classes doing online, or even easier to follow. And about their perception of learning, the large majority of students, they said that they learn the same or even better than face-to-face classes. So in conclusions, to identify challenges for designing the course and selection of resources, this is very important. The methodologies and technologies can be powerful tools for engaging students in classes and using the reading materials. They can also be a source of problems in teaching, of course, and they can be successfully applied to face-to-face and online teaching. And most importantly, communication with students is really essential for learning and humanization of the teaching learning community. So thank you all for listening. And this is another picture from Braga.